Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Council of Time. It caught me off guard that time. I finally did make it. Boy, I almost didn't make it, you all. Almost did not make it. But it's good to be able to join you this afternoon for some of you. It is afternoon. For some of you, it is not. And, of course, our German audience, well, those in the UK, Germany, and all those, they did request another one of those talks that we're going to have with them early one morning. So some of you who are here super early in the mornings, like around, I don't know, maybe around, well, for some people it'll be Central Time. Let's pick it there. It'll be about 5 a.m. Doubtful you'll be up. But I do that from time to time just for them, to interact with them. Yeah. Their English is not too good, but I have to coordinate with one of the, there are several people in there that will type out what I'm saying. They'll kind of paraphrase what I'm saying, typing it out, and then they talk amongst each other. Some of them listen to me. So it's working out. It's working out. Well, today is Wednesday, finally. It is Wednesday. How many of you were here last night? Because I was talking last night, getting into some very realistic conversations. Very controversial, but quite realistic. We're going to continue with some of those realistic things because they have everything to do with the nature of the weather phenomenon that people are seeing. I'm just shocked that we have become so used to it. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. You know what? In talking about some of the weather phenomena that's taking place, which will turn from somewhat mundane to catastrophic, as it is doing right now, we must consider something, right? We must consider several things because we want to see how serious these things are going to be. So I ask you this. If we were people who had access to all probes and everything else and we could see everything, we would begin to prepare based upon what? Truth, based upon what we can observe. Correct? So then guess what? If we look at those who are actually preparing, we know how close something is according to what they can see. It was already written in the Word of God that men's hearts will fail them for fear for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. Right? In fact, quote by quote, men's hearts failing them for fear and looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. The powers of heaven being shaken is going to give them the jitterbugs, the jitters. You guys ever heard of that before? The jitters, right? Jitters, nervous jitters, whatever you want to call them. They're not going to like it, which means they're observing it right now. The powers of heaven. Well, if the powers of heaven shake, then so will the phenomena here on earth, correct? So now we're going to have some nerd things that come out because you have to know about radiation. You have to know about this wave. That wave's going to take you know what? People find out about radiation too late. Why do you think cancer is up these days? Why? You think it just came out of the blue? Do you really believe that cancer is caused by sugar substitutes? Right? Aspartame, that is something that is embalming fluid that was invented in Germany, which activates 98.7 degrees in the human body. And so the more of that stuff you have, you're just embalming yourself, preparing yourself for death. And your body actually needs real sugar for energy, right? Because if you don't have that, you certainly don't have enough potassium and other minerals that need to be in your system. Your heating system and your body is going to fluctuate, which is why you have lots of hot flashes. Lots of them. Right? That stuff's no good for you. God made your body to consume those things he also made, not synthetic particles, clogging up your system. But then again, that's man's hand and control over everything. So we're going to talk about radiation real quick. Oh, and by the way, last night I told you something too. We are being forced to shuffle around some things here at COT on the tech side. We are. Later on tonight, with a minuscule, tiny little minuscule figure, I'm going to request your help, but not now. We have something else to discuss. That way, to give people time to turn it off, I'll give the substance first, and then I'll make a request. Because this time, if you enjoy COT, we really need your help. But we'll do that after, just in case Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear the substance. That's the way we work. It's amazing. It is. Because we're having just too many people coming in here, and they are just, they're just crunching up the system. At first we thought it was some type of cyber attack, but after speaking to the domain providers and several other entities, we found out this is static traffic. And then I was wondering, well, why is it not showing up on some of your you know how they check statistics over the internet, so forth and so on. I want to know, why is our ranking not the way it should be if that is the case? And it's because of our database. The database that we have, right, SQL database, and people don't know it, but you're logging into a database. When you go and visit COT, the numbers are being tracked by the database, and it's all over the place. Then you have people replicating these talks, adding the Council of Time domain name to that, and you start getting these sporadic hits. Right now it's averaging about 2 million hits per day. So it's going up and up and up. Out of that, every conversation that we have is then being distributed, and we have some help trying to track this down to see where all this traffic is coming from. There are about 100 to 175 people that record when I'm talking every single night, and then they play it to another respective audience, right? So what's happening is that they're beginning to find out what Council of Time is coming here to check out the site and everything else, going to do that. And we found out very, 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 we just did not, we didn't account for those type numbers to steadily come in. And so they are. But I thought it was a fluke at first. They just kind of, they blew up the servers once with all this stuff, and it's just overloaded. So we're being forced to change platforms. The site has to be redone. It has to accommodate some brand new architecture for 2017 service providers. We have to do that also. We're going to renew contracts for the next 5 years for all this different type stuff. And all this is happening this month. So we have to get in place and get in place fast. But we'll discuss that after. Right now, we're going to talk about some things that will likely turn some of your things on your head. Now, we were discussing throughout this time, we were discussing us seeing the truth versus a lie. And so I've been demonstrating. I'm going to demonstrate something to you real quick. Do you guys remember? I'll just tell you how fast we readily accept lies. Do you guys remember about the Mars rock? Do you remember that controversy about the Mars rock? Do you guys remember that? The Mars rock. And with the Mars rock, right, they were debating whether they had some type of fossilized biological life form in the rock. You guys remember that? Do you remember that? Do you guys remember that one? Right? And they were saying, we may have found bacteria in the rock. In the Mars rock. You guys remember that? Do you? A lot of people remember that, right? It is so funny. Because when I heard that, I'm telling you, my rib cage almost... You know how when you laugh so hard, your rib cage starts to break down? That's what happened to me. I laughed, not because of the fossilized shapes that were inside of the rock, right? But because of the rock itself. People bought that hook, line, and sinker. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Are you kidding? Is this how easy it is? Why is this so easy? And see, it was funny at first. And then what it began to do was disturb me. Is what it did, because I said, no. People can't fall for stuff like this. They can't. They just did it straight to their faces. And they can't fall for it. See, everybody got trapped in the fossilized life forms. Wondering, they're just stuff from the Antarctic. It's not really from Mars, but they never said, is that rock from Mars? That's the part they missed. I mean, they just swallowed that rock was from Mars. That's what made me laugh. So they snuck that out and said, this rock from Mars may, because it's billions of years old, that's hogwash, it may have fossilized life forms that we found in the Antarctic. Now, first of all, oh boy, I had to laugh on this. I'm just telling you how they dupe you, how they do things, and then people readily accept it. So they presented you with an impossible fact, right? And then the next thing they presented was just more impossible than the first. So you accept the first one and look toward the second. You bought two lies. So here's what happens. How in the world do they know it was from Mars? That's the funny part. somebody stay with me, please. Wait, did they go up to Mars? Right? Did they already do some type of spectrographs and everything out there in Mars? And did they dig up the dirt on Mars and get all the samples necessary to compare the two? Is that what they did? How in the world did they know it was from Mars? Because you got to remember, at that time, they had only sent up several different things up there, which they say they lost communication, all this, that, and the other. So all of a sudden, they find a rock from Mars. Why in the world? How do you find a rock and say, oh, a Mars rock? How do you do that? Out of all the billions and trillions of tons of junk that has landed on the earth, you pick up one, no bigger than the palm of your hand, and you say, this one's from Mars. Are you kidding? Now, do you see something is wrong with that? See, most of you, right, you thought I was going to talk about the fossils inside of the rock. No, I'm talking about the rock. That's what I'm talking about, the rock. Tommy C. says, was it red? No, it was black. It was black. You see how they trick people? Now, listen. How many people would never dispute that rock is from Mars, but they are disputing whether or not it has fossils inside? They forget the fact that nobody has ever proved that rock is from Mars. They just pick up a rock and say it's from Mars, and then they present to well, it may have fossils in it, but we're not sure if it's fossils from Antarctic or Mars. But if it's from Mars, this will be the groundbreaking discovery of the ages. They could have picked up a fossilized potato and told you it was from Mars. They could pick up anything and just label it like it's from Mars, bring up another controversy about it, and you'll swallow it hook, line, and sinker. But we're all skeptical about everything else. This is how they get you every single time. They get you every single time this way. This is what we must tear down. That has to be torn down. We can't fall for these tricks anymore. I'm mentioning this because in the political spectrum, they have duped you so bad that if I were to communicate to you, if I could do that effectively, exactly what they did, just like in bringing up the controversy about the rock and not the fossils inside the rock, you would blow your top tonight. You would. You'd blow your top. You wouldn't like that at all. You would feel betrayed and everything else. So we need to talk about some structures here. Right? Because you can look out at the weather phenomena in the world and you can see that for yourselves. You know something is not right with the weather. Every so often they'll say, well, we had this kind of condition 7 years ago. Here's the fact. It's never been in Washington, D.C. since they have begun recording the weather. There is no data table showing this type of warmth in Washington, D.C. at this time of the year. No, this is first time it ever happened. And in fact, from the contrasts of hot and cold, right? Contrast of hot and cold, there are a lot of things all over the world. This is the first time in recorded history it's ever happened. And you know what we're doing? We have gotten used to it so much so we say it's normal, and it's not. And they have changed the way that you compare things. You call these folks the Kabbalah, but do you know what that is? Many people call these folks, that they call them so many different things, right? Zionists, they call them everything. All these names they give them, the Illuminati, which is a culmination of secret society folks, which is very real. Scottish Rite and the French Masons and all this, that, and the other. When you go and look into that stuff, which does nobody any good, I'll tell you why, because you can't do anything about it. You say you think you can do something about it? Go disrupt one of the Bilderberg meetings. Once you disrupt a Bilderberg meeting, then you have the power to see exactly what they're doing. But biblically, the Lord told us what they were doing. He gave us a Babylonian model. Do you not know that of all the Bible, Babylon keeps popping up over and over and over and over and over again? Almost like the Lord is saying, children, you need to analyze Babylon, because this is what you live in, Babylon. But you need to understand what Babylon is. How many people know that Babylon existed before the flood? But it was not called Babylon. How many know that? Listen, Babylon and the Tower of Babel and Baal and Mars all go together. Do you know that? They all go together. We need not discuss some of the far out stuff because I want you to see some principles here, right here on earth. So we can't go into outer space, except when we begin to talk about radiation. Because you're really going to be bad when I start talking about that. Just like you thought about the rock, and you said, wait a minute. They did. Just pick up a rock. They don't know where it came from, and they call it a Mars rock. They make us believe it, but why did they do that? You got to ask yourself, why even state that maybe you found some fossils in a rock that you state is from Mars? Why do that in the first place? Why would anybody do that in the first place? Why? That is the main question. Not why they would say fossils are in there, but why would they claim a rock is from Mars in the first place? That's called setting up your paradigm. You may say, no, they can't do that. We'll find a way through. No, they fooled you already. You're living in their reality, not reality. You're already living according to how they want you to live. You think you're doing something, and you're doing nothing. You're not doing a thing. You're doing everything they want you to do. People say, well, that's not true because I go to church and I do this, that, and the other. No, what you're doing is segregating yourselves from humanity, because you begin to accuse everybody else. See, the real reason they had separation of church and state is because they never wanted a type of theocracy. And they didn't want a religious rule over the land, so they'd start calling people heretics and then burn them at the stake again. That's why. That's the real reason. But it was corrupted. And they even wrote that it would be corrupted. See, when they wrote certain documents, nobody ever asked a question, wait a minute, how long did it take them to write the documents? Who drafted what? And what else did they write in conjunction with the documents? That's what nobody wants to address. They look at the finished product and they say, oh, how great. No, you need to read the backstory. Because all of those men were not great. Some of them were pure Satan himself. And some believed in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So much so they sent warning letters to us. You didn't know that, did you? In fact, there were warning letters locked up in a very special place in Washington, D.C., and they're for our generation. When freedom would be corrupted. But it's already happened. They didn't tell you about it because you still keep thinking. How many of you think you're free? There's a type of freedom you have, yes, but you only have freedom within the confines of somebody else's kingdom, of somebody else's way of life, of somebody else's walk. Don't you find that not so good, right? The fact is you have no real freedom. You only have freedom to make the choices they give you. How do we continue to fall for this stuff? You're not free if you make a choice somebody else gives you. And you think you're free? You're not free. You're not. That's not liberty. Freedom, the idea of freedom was established just like this, that any person could worship whatever they wanted, that there would be no Christian government. And what I mean by that is because every time there's been a Christian government, people died by the millions. They would enforce their belief upon a person, and if a person did not believe, they would kill him. It's not righteousness to kill everybody who doesn't believe as you do. So then they had the separation of church and state, and then everybody took it much further. They don't even know what that means. Most people today have no idea why they had separation of church and state. They didn't know what some of the founding guys were afraid of. I can't call them father because the word says, call no man father, but you have one father. He is in heaven. So I'll just say the founding men of America. I know some of you say, well, that's blasphemy. Well, too bad. I have but one father. But just one. I'll call no other person father. Because Jesus said, don't call any other person father. And I will not. So now, they pull the wool over your eye. I got a little forceful in that, didn't I? I got a little forceful. I'm sorry, I can't do it. It marvels me sometimes how that the world has taught us to defy Christ around every single corner. So then they have this separation of church and state, which people today really don't know why they had it. They come up with ideas, not necessarily going into their documents to find out the truth. Because then you have to do a lot of historical research. And once you do that research, sometimes it takes years to see through all the grumble to see what in the world is all this about. And then you trace it back to the origins and you find out how. But I want to tell you another secret. They pull the wolves over your eyes again. How many of you have something in your spirit? You know something is wrong with president. It just doesn't sit right. You look at the folks and you're saying, well, wait a minute. They're supposed to have power, but they have no power. Why don't they have any power? Because every time they go to do something during a new election, people say, well, this president's going to do such and such. And they don't get to do it. Why? Because another power stops in to stop them, right? If the president had power, he would not be opposed on what he wanted to do. That's not the truth. That's not the case. And so what people do is make up their own reality in this thing. They have forgotten how things are formed. It really does take you all the way back to the garden again. So let me share something with you so that you understand. Do you not understand that there is no president, there is no leader, there is no king, there is no queen, there is no one without one thing? What is it? Who appoints the kings? Go into your Bible. Who appointed the kings over the lands? I know a lot of people say God did, don't they? In fact, that's true. All right? But how is that done? How is it done? Who on earth of flesh and blood picks all the kings who will ever be king on the face of the earth? Who does this? You ready? I'm about to mess up your vocabulary. The priesthood. How many of you know something? Let's just interject this thought. Who among you would fight an enemy you know nothing about? Type a 1 in the chat room. Who would fight an enemy you know nothing about? Because if you did, you're destined to lose. Right? You're destined to lose. I'm messing up your vocabulary because I see some people saying, the Pope, no. The Vatican, no. Sorry, not true. That's not true. I'm sorry. I just messed everybody up. Sorry. We're talking about the priesthood. We're not talking about established religion that we can see. We're talking about the priesthood. The Pope is not the most powerful person on the face of this earth. What is the most powerful? The parts you can't see. What's been calling the shots from the beginning. And if you go back through history, you can see their fingerprints all through it. They do the same thing over and over again. But it's a mystery to you, well known to them. I'll give you this. Imagine people, right? Some apocalyptic event took place. Society is crushed. Babies are born. Those babies begin to grow up without language. Very, very little language. No technology, no anything. And they're terrified of nighttime. Why? Because that's when all the creepy crawlies and animals come out, right? There's no technology, no nothing, and then all of a sudden a storm hits. A storm hits. When the storm hits, they see lightning hit a tree, and that tree catches on fire. I'm giving you guys something from the books of those you will never see. This is how they are taught. I hope you're listening to me close. I'm trying to let you know the nature of your enemy. So this person sees a tree struck, and a fire starts. And the person who sees it marvels at the fire, but the fire goes out. And so the next storm of the fire, when it does it again, another tree is stuck. Guess what? They take the stick. They see it burning. They observe, saw it burning. And they begin to learn how to keep the flame going. The flame is still burning. Day and night is burning. So then when night comes, somebody sees that burning flame, and they run over to it. Now it's two people. They're warm, cozy, and everything else next to a burning fire. Then a whole bunch of people come next to a burning fire. And they begin to teach each other how to keep it lit. And they have watch. You keep it lit. You keep it lit. Everybody's keeping it lit. With this fire, they can now, with those creepy, crawly things at night, they're scared of that light, so they back away. They also found out that fire is hot and it can burn, so now they have weapons. That fire becomes a weapon. But guess what? They know about it, but the rest of the people don't. So they keep everybody else away from the glow, but in the walls of the fire. So no creepy, crawly animals can come and attack them. Those people sitting around the fire, guess what they do? They develop a ceremony around the fire. And the people that see them dancing and stuff around the fire are in awe. All of a sudden they conclude, hey, we need these people. They keep that going. They're supernatural or something, right? They give light at night, the light givers. Guess what the people are? The person who knew about the fire, who knew how to sustain it, and those who dance around, and guess what they are? They are the priesthood. What is a priesthood? The first people who learned how to manipulate the elements. It's a priesthood, telling you the truth. Now, see, you thought I was going to go off and say something weird. Wrong. It was a priesthood. They hold the key to the fire. The fire is most important at night. The fire is also a weapon. The holders of that weapon, that fire, that thing that keeps everybody safe, causes them to receive praise. Then what they say is, hey, we need to pick out someone to be king over these people that we can talk to. Thus you have a kingship born. I know this flies in the face of many different things. I'm telling you, it goes on today just like that. So then the people would see the king, never the priests. The priests would go to the king, right? The priests go to the king, but the people don't see the priests. The priests stay hidden. Are you guys starting to see now? Priests stay hidden. They're running the whole show. They are the keepers of knowledge. They pick the king and they tell the king exactly what he must do. Now the king within himself thinks he's doing his people a service. By doing whatever he does for them, the king totally believes in what he's doing, but he's being told what to do by the other folks. So he's been trained by the agenda of somebody he can never see. And he carries it out. Just like in the old days, they used to have kings that would die at the end of every year. They would die. They would be torn apart in pieces and their body parts scattered all over the lands. You know why? Anybody know why? So that it would yield a better crop in the future. That's what the king believed. And so he did what he did for the sake of what? His kingdom. Because he loved the people so much. But that's not why they set him there to dismember him. That's what they told him it was for. And so he thought he was doing a good job, sacrificing his life for the sake of that kingdom to keep it going. But that's not what the whole thing was about. The whole thing was about this. If a king stays in power too long, that king will begin to see right through a type of veil. He himself will have then two options. Either he becomes part of the priesthood, or they're going to have to shut him up for the rest of his life. And so they have a time limit on kingship. Any king you see hold a kingdom beyond 12 years is in fact a priest, not a king. Have you ever noticed something too? Oh, well, I can't, listen. Now, again, this is how they operate. This is how they operate. All right? And it's what is called as the mystery schools with these dodos. Right? With these dodos. Mystery schools. But guess how the priests get what they get? This is so funny. The priests teach the kings not to believe in the hoo-foo voodoo stuff, right? But those priests are called priests for a reason. We're not talking about the good ones. Guess who they get their information from? Forces. They communicate with the forces out there. The priests communicate in the spiritual realm, the force. Then they tell the king what to do. They are inspired by spiritual things. You see how that works? So the priests are inspired by spiritual things. They are the ones who elect the king. They will sacrifice a king based upon their agenda. Are you starting to see something? How many are seeing something right now? Is this just gibberish? How How many are starting to see a pattern? How many can see the world today through what I'm saying? They have taught people to doubt everything that would ever lead them back to what they are in contact with. That's why they have ceremonies. I say, are you guys starting to see now? That's why a president in the United States normally looks lost. At the end of his first term, they don't know what to do. All of a sudden, they come back gray-haired in their second term. Every time in the second term, it's like they lost 5 years of their life. They age in 5 years. Not the first term, the second term. See, at the end of the second term, it's like someone cut them loose and they don't know what to do. They're stressed out and everything else. The second term, something changes. Something alters, but they look very old. Are you telling me that at the second term of a president, the change is so drastic, they get gray-haired and old in the face? They just look totally different. Did you see Bush in the first term, the end of the first term, versus the second term? Did you see the contrast? What about Obama? What about Clinton? What about all these guys? The second term is also called a commitment. Some make it, some don't. Some are set up for a sacrifice. And that has to do with Osiris. Telling you the truth. The obelisk. That's a fact. They're laughing in your faces. And what if they, do you think they have anything to do with how the church is run? You got to be careful how you hear. You'd be surprised how many people with the resources, why they have those resources. You'd be shocked of what they have done to get the resources they have, and why they begin not that they keep saying, you know, every religion is okay. You can believe in anybody so long as you're happy and peaceful. That is a lie. You're not sent here to be happy and peaceful and all this nonsense stuff. In the United States right now, I'm going to tell you something. They say, listen, here's what they teach you. Here's what they teach you. Ready for this? They teach you to find your paradise on earth so you can be happy and peaceful, right? Happy and peaceful. Anything can go so long as everybody can work together, right? They don't want to kill those who commit adultery. That's legal in this country. Adultery is. It's legal to go sleep with somebody else's wife. You just pay a fine, basically. That's still legal. All these dumb things are legal, these abominations. Why? Because they are interested in making you happy and complacent. And so you have been striving for the course of your life to be happy and complacent. In fact, most of your prayers have to do with being happy and complacent. You just want to be happy. Lord, I just want to be happy. Lord, I just want to be complacent. I want to be comfortable. I need a break, Lord. Give me a break. I can't go through this. How do we say, Lord, I can't go through this, and we go through that every day of our lives? Who fooled us into thinking stuff like that? See, what has happened is the church has gotten very weak. Jesus walked through the streets where people tried to kill him, and he still spoke the truth. The truth is controversial. The truth is different. The truth is not what mankind accepts, because the flesh does not want the truth. And the truth made him a target. Oh, God forbid we walk out there and become a target. We say, oh, no, I must be doing something wrong. People don't like me. They have warped your mind. What do you see on television with entertainment? Do whatever you want to do on a given platform, but just maintain the peace and you're okay. You can talk about killing. You can talk about raping. You can talk about war and everything else. Our rule of law stinks because it legalizes abominations. I tell you the truth, America could be a great nation. I say could be because a long, long time ago, a few things happened and men lost their own fight. You guys remember when you were young and somebody told you what you couldn't do, but you believed you can do it? You said, well, I don't care what they say. I'm going to do it anyway. You remember that when you were young? You said, I'm going to do it anyway. It didn't matter if you succeeded or not. You went and did it. That's why this country is in the shape it's in. Do you know why the country is in such bad shape? I'll tell you why, because the church is all tired. Oh, we're tired. We're tired of fighting. No, you're not. What you're tired of doing is asking God to make you comfortable. You're tired of going out there searching for the imagination and never get it. You're tired of your own failings because you didn't try the Lord's way. You're tired because you couldn't make your vision come true. How can we be tired of the truth of the Lord? That's impossible. I don't agree with that. I do not. That's fake, phony, and everything else. And when you know it, listen, all of us who have ever said that we are tired, we like television. I'm telling you the truth. All of us who said we are tired, we like our music, we like the television, we like to be entertained, we like those things of the world. We can't get enough of it. And when we try to get it, somebody smacks our hands, and then we go sit in a chair like a kid throwing a tantrum saying, well, I'm just tired. I'm tired. I never get what I want. Is that not a tantrum? This is all inside the church. You don't think this is an apostate generation, of a generation who just fell away? I can't talk like this too much. It will guarantee to get me in trouble. We'll have 3 people listening at the end of tonight, huh? Because most people just want to be comfortable. Show me how to be comfortable, Mike. I can't do it. You're an overcomer. You just don't know it. And if you won't overcome through Christ, what can I tell you? I can't tell you anything. We're not here to be comfortable. We're here to be uncomfortable and to make other folks uncomfortable. Because we're vessels of truth, which makes flesh uncomfortable. So why do you seek comfort? Jesus said one time, suppose you think that I came to make peace on the earth? No, I did not. He told us he didn't. Some of you have lost your fire. You know why? Because some religious leader out there said, oh yes, God wants you comfortable. No, he does not. That's why the world is falling apart, because they've been lying, saying the same thing over and over again. God wants you comfortable. Now that just kindles the fire in me. Why does God want you comfortable here? That's called being comfortable in the flesh. No, he wants you to be more than a conqueror here. I heard that before. I'm sure it was written down in the New Testament. They have been getting us left and right and left. They're laughing in our faces. They laugh at people. They make these comments to people, and they sit there and they put ceremonies in front of your face out of the religious order in the mystery schools. And we say, yes, we must attend this and honor you better hold your tongue. They make you honor the works of men. Can anybody show me that in the Bible, please, where you are supposed to honor the works of men? Can anybody? And then people say, well, I'm patriotic. Listen, I've got myself in real trouble one time because I almost steamed over. About 15 years ago, I steamed over, and somebody dared utter that word patriotic to me. I have more scars and bruises for the sake of this country. And they dared talk to me about being patriotic. And they couldn't even define the word. Then it got down to the point, what are you patriotic to? What is it? What's the driver of it? See, I was already, it just it pushed me over the edge. They have to know the meaning before they start saying stuff like that. It's a very strong word. But the question is, what are you patriotic to? And don't give me a blanket statement saying, I'm patriotic for my country. You name each and every principle and attribute you are patriotic to. Don't just say I'm patriotic for this country, because I'll say, what does the country do? You want to know any country? Go find its poor. And you'll see the value of any country. That's a fact. I didn't come from the philosopher's stone. That's a fact. To know a nation's poor is to know the resolve of that country, because a country with a true resolve has no poor. And then you have a priesthood in every country. Do you not know that a long time ago, I know you know them as World War I and II. You don't know that the great leaders got together 3 times. All the Russians, the Brits, NATO, all these folks were together over cigars. And you know what they were talking about? Who's going to be the enemy of what they named the Cold War? Before anybody knew anything about the Cold War, they called it a Cold War. They had an agreement on who the enemy would be. You don't even know that, do you? We bought that hook, line, and sinker, having everybody scared of nuclear weapons. And then our imagination runs away. They know this. They know that if they don't tell you something, because it is human nature to put things together, your imagination is going to solidify a fact that's not true, and you're going to teach it to generation. Now, here's what they do. Any resolve you imagine that is plausible, that the people then agree with, all they have to do is never tell you that it's false. And people run away with it. Oh, boy. That's kind of like Hitler and the relationship with Hitler and the United States in the Middle East, because they had their little meetings. Hitler was going to be the bad guy, financed by us. But they skewed all those facts and everything else. And that's very difficult, because the history has been lost among those who are being taught something else. Children today are not being taught history. They're being taught that history was a bunch of bad ideas. That's what they're being taught. They're teaching children this happened at the surface of history because they did not know what they were doing. Isn't that what your kids are learning? That history itself was a bad idea. That the true revolutionaries in history were those who liked socialism. Isn't that what they're teaching your children? Educational system is teaching kids socialism is good. It's fair. Everybody can get ahead. Well, the fact is, everybody can't get ahead, because if everybody were rich, where would the labor come from? Do we, honestly, it's almost like we woke up one day and half of our brain was dissolved. Because everybody in a country is chasing riches, knowing that everybody cannot be rich. The numbers don't work out that way. You have to have people that work with poop, people that collect trash, people that do this and do that. And to clean up, the cleanup process of a nation takes the majority of the labor. But people, can you all see something here? Now, I'm trying to get you to see this in a small lens, so that we can talk about the weather. Because the same way they have duped you with history itself, calming you, it's almost like they gave you a tranquilizer that you pass down to your children. The children, you know what? I went to a place. Listen, I tell you, it was I can't believe it. Yes, I can. That's the term I hate to use. I hate to use the term I can't believe it, but that's the only term I can use. I went to a place where people had to actually sit down and wait. So I'm sitting there observing children, mothers, fathers, men, women. And everybody has a phone. Some didn't have a phone. Everybody was tied to their phone. I mean, they were glued to it. There was a television on. Nobody was watching the TV, not even the little 5-year-olds. They were pushing their brother aside, trying to get the mom's PDA, their little cell phone device. I heard the child say, I want YouTube. I want you. They're tied to the devices. So I'm sitting there watching, and I stand up. and I stretch, right? And so you can perceive through peripheral vision people glancing at you. So, I kind of stretched, and they're glancing. They were right back to their devices. I could have jumped out of the window, and everybody would have went back to their devices. I heard names being called, and at first they act like they couldn't hear it. When they called one name, everybody looked up. Like, who did they just call? Nobody knew who they called. I said, oh, my Lord, this whole world is brain dead. We're brain dead. And then you could hear them talking, discussing things. Very fast and efficient with a wording, right? Because they needed to get back to their device to send that last message or something like that. But here was the worst part. Here's the worst part. When I looked into the faces of the adults and some of the kids, I saw stress. I did. I saw stress, followed by happiness, followed by frustration, followed by stress, all because of the device. All the essential ingredients of a day of a human being is locked up in that device. It has become their world. I noticed a few places in waiting rooms. Have you ever noticed how they used to be decorated versus how they're decorated now? Many people don't pay attention. I do. I pay attention to everything. I have to. I was trained to do that. Look at something for a split second and then write down those things you saw. So you have to pay attention. The layout is digital. The procedures are modeled after software. And no one knows what to do without your cell phone. All the information is referenceable by a computer or something else. In fact, even the nurses can't tell you anything unless they see it on a doc. They don't know anything. They're reading from a tablet. That makes no sense. That was, that just did it for me today. It really did. Because people have lost their minds in a literal sense. And then, I'm evaluating shows like this. And I'm asking myself, my Lord, what are we talking about here? We need to talk about some real substance. Yes, it's going to be controversial. People won't like it. But I said, Lord, there's no way I'm going to perpetuate this stupidity I see in the world. It's killing us, and we can't even see it. It's killing us. It's absolutely killing us. The kids are brain dead. All the kids know is give me, I want. That's it. That's the extent of their vocabulary. And they know that, they can identify everything. But they're so greedy. These little children are incredibly greedy. And I'm looking at these 4-year-olds saying when they become adults, they're going to do everything and anything necessary to obtain what they want at that specific time. They're smart alecks to their parents, and I almost fell out of my chair. I'm not used to hearing disrespect or child or anybody not say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes or no sir. Not used to that. A child correcting his mother. A child not listening to their parents, ordering their parents around. A person like me could go to jail. And all the kids would have little whelps on their lips from smacks. That's what comes over your mind. These kids need discipline. Put them in bird cages until they can get their vocabulary right. But that's not the way it works. And then the parent was sitting there looking defeated. And I saw this look over and over again, like they couldn't do anything with their children. They have lost their parenthood. And the world is dying. It's dying. This is how freedom was perverted. Freedom actually constitutes a man's right to perceive how he perceives, to do things on his own, that he may reach an ultimate truth, which is to say you're never forced to believe initially like everybody else does, but all through freedom, all of us can find the truth, no matter what the background. That's not what's happening. What has happened is, through the guise of freedom, detestable teachings have taken place. The world is dying. Where's the leadership going to come from? You know what's leading the world right now? iPhones. Without technology, people would not know how to get from point A to point B. You guys remember before GPS? You looked at so many maps and so many atlases, right? That you could remember exits and highways, and it was just in your head. You committed to memory many things. Do you not know that people with cell phones can't remember their own telephone number? It is sad. Why? Because that device has become their memory. But they don't know that. It really has. How many of you know everybody's number of whom you talk to? How many of you know everybody's email address by heart? Even when the networks first began, you would memorize these things by heart. And you would know. Now that's not true. If your cell phone breaks down, you are lost. You don't know anybody's phone number, their email address. You don't know the sites of which you draw things from and this, that. You don't know anything. You would be done. Why? Because you have committed your memory to an electronic device. You don't think that's scary? If you're lost without your phone, then what has control over your life? This is what I want you to see. Only something with control over your life can cause a person to be lost without it. Let's examine a heartbreak. You were with the person you absolutely love and your heart was broken. When you lost that person, you lost a large piece of yourself. You had no desire to do many things. Why? Because with that person, you were powerful. And without that person, you were nothing. The iPhone and these electronic devices have become the power of many people's lives. And without it, they are nothing. It has become their identity. And if they're lost without it, they'll do anything to keep it. I know they will. Why? You think it just came out of the blue? Do you really believe that cancer is caused by sugar substitutes? Right? Aspartame, that is something that is embalming fluid that was invented in Germany, which activates 98.7 degrees in the human body. And so the more of that stuff you have, you're just embalming yourself, preparing yourself for death. And your body actually needs real sugar for energy, right? Because if you don't have that, you certainly don't have enough potassium and other minerals that need to be in your system. Your heating system and your body is going to fluctuate, which is why you have lots of hot flashes. Lots of them. Right? That stuff's no good for you. God made your body to consume those things. He also made not synthetic particles, clogging up your system. But then again, that's man's hand and control over everything. So we're going to talk about radiation real quick. Oh, and by the way, last night I told you something too. We are being forced to shuffle around some things here at COT on the tech side. We are. Later on. Well, today is Wednesday, finally. It is Wednesday. How many of you were here last night? Because I was talking last night, getting into some very realistic conversations. Very controversial, but quite realistic. We're going to continue with some of those realistic things because they have everything to do with the nature of the weather phenomenon that people are seeing. I'm just shocked that we have become so used to it. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. You know what? In talking about some of the weather phenomena that's taking place, which will turn from somewhat mundane to catastrophic, as it is doing right now, we must consider something, right? We must consider several things because we want to see how serious these things are going to be. So I ask you this. If we were people who had access to all probes and everything else and we could see everything, we would begin to prepare based upon what? Truth, based upon what we can observe. Correct? So then guess what? If we look later on tonight, with a minuscule, tiny little minuscule figure, I'm going to request your help, but not now. We have something else to discuss. That way, to give people time to turn it off, I'll give the substance first, and then I'll make a request. Because this time, if you enjoy COT, we really need your help. But we'll do that after, just in case nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear the substance. That's the way we work. It's amazing. It is. Because we're having just too many people coming in here, and they are just, I mean, they're just crunching up the system. At first we thought it was, some type of cyber attack, but after speaking to the domain providers and several other entities, we found out this is static traffic. And then I was wondering, well, why is it not showing up on some of your you know how they check statistics over the internet, so forth and so on. I want to know, why is our ranking not the way it should be if that is the case? If we look at those who are actually preparing, we know how close something is according to what they can see. It was already written in the Word of God that men's hearts will fail them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. Right? In fact, quote by quote, men's hearts failing them for fear and looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. The powers of heaven being shaken is going to give them the jitterbugs, the jitters. You guys ever heard of that before? The jitters, right? Jitters, nervous jitters, whatever you want to call them. They're not going to like it, which means they're observing right now. The powers of heaven. Well, if the powers of heaven shake, then so will the phenomena here on earth, correct? So now we're going to have some nerd things that come out, because you have to know about radiation. You have to know about this wave. That wave's going to take you know what? People find out about radiation too late. Why do you think cancer is up these days? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Council of Time. It's caught me off guard that time. I finally did make it. Boy, I almost didn't make it, you all. Almost did not make it. But it's good to be able to join you this afternoon. For some of you, it is afternoon. For some of you, it is not. And, of course, our German audience, well, those in the UK, Germany, and all those, they did request another one of those talks that we're going to have with them early one morning. So some of you who are here super early in the mornings, like around, I don't know, maybe around, well, for some people it'll be Central Time. Let's pick it there. It'll be about 5 a.m. Doubtful you'll be up. But I do that from time to time just for them, to interact with them. Yeah. Their English is not too good, but I have to coordinate with one of the, there are several people in there that will type out what I'm saying. They'll kind of paraphrase what I'm saying, typing it out, and then they talk amongst each other. Some of them listen to me. So it's working out. It's working out.